welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight, we are coming to you from the beautiful city of Lucknow, talking about promoting best business practices for you, the SME entrepreneur. Do stay tuned. We're bringing you highlights of an expert panel discussion. The economy of Lucknow has been growing by leap and bounds, no doubt. We've seen, for instance, Invest in Uttar Pradesh that's been doing really well in terms of at least the kind of attention that it's pulling in. Given the elections and that we are in the backdrop of that and we're very close to that, how perhaps are things going to change on the ground for the economy of Uttar Pradesh, for Lucknow and for the entrepreneurs based here?
Talking about the Indian economy, I would draw from a macro perspective first. The economy has been growing at around 7 to 7.5% on average, and we expect it to expand at the same rate for the next 20 years. So, if you look at the economy of UP, then the economy of UP is actually growing faster than what the economy of India is growing in real terms. So, economy of UP has been growing at around 8% per annum. If you look at it from a nominal perspective, that means that is by adding inflation to it, then the GDP growth of UP comes to around 11%, 12%. The size of the GDP of UP state is about $260 odd billion, while the size of the economy of Lucknow is about $40 billion, and that's significant. So what I believe is that as the economy evolves further, the ecosystem of Lucknow would also evolve with the ecosystem of India, with the ecosystem of UP, and that would create tremendous opportunities for entrepreneurs, for people who are involved in businesses around the city and in this state. Okay,
so you're saying that it's definitely growing, and some of the policies and incentives being announced by the present government, for instance, are definitely going to see an impact. But this question is open to all of you on this panel, and as entrepreneurs, I'm sure it's having an impact. What perhaps are the changes you're expecting to see? How have things maybe changed in the past 2-3 years? What are some of the biggest changes you're expecting as entrepreneurs, given the elections coming up?
Basically, biggest change what I can feel is that we have high hopes from the existing government and the upcoming government. And especially for the SMEs, like they have started giving relief in different forms to the SMEs, like for GST, and there are a lot of relief for the small businesses, like from 20 lakhs they have increases to 40 lakhs, they need no registrations. So that kind of relief we are looking forward, and especially for the women entrepreneurs and social businesses, we have high hopes from the government, and because they are the upcoming startups, you can say, and women they are really coming forward in the business sector. So we have high hopes.
See, there are two issues that we have in the startup space as it goes today. One is, of course, the taxation, and the second is control and ownership. There has to be a segregation of the two. As far as taxes are concerned, the present government have come up with lots of schemes, very good schemes, by waiving off income tax the first few years for startup companies, which is very encouraging. But most startups, at least the ones that you hear about are technology friendly, take much more time to break even. And so there is no tax liability as such in any case for those companies for the first 5 to 6 years. Yeah? So we would hope that the government eases off on GST as well as service tax for these companies, so that they actually get a fighting chance to grow. On the other side, the other point was as far as ownership and control is concerned. Now in India, unfortunately, the shares are, if you have a share of the company, you have the ownership of the company and you have control on the company. However, in every other country, there is a segregation. So a person can control, for example, Jack Ma controls Alibaba with only 8% equity. The way he does it is because he has also options to be able to control it. We need to have this segregation. Because without the segregation, all our startups that are there today, and especially the big ones, are not really Indian companies anymore. because they're all being bought out by all different companies, and they have controlling say in the companies.
So GST, two people on this panel have said that, and we've definitely seen good news coming in terms of the government really listening to what entrepreneurs are saying and bringing down the GST rates, at least on some sectors and for some sectors. Do you think that has definitely been a boost? Do you expect more perhaps on that? And this is for everyone on this panel.
The impact of lowering the GST prices have been there for even the down section of the society. Everyone is getting that impact and is feeling the benefit of that. Small-time entrepreneurs and businesses have to pay upfront for all the GST amounts every month, and the refunds are processed after few months. So it really impacts them and helps them in sustaining that kind of a capital.
Bilal, do you have something you want to add?
Actually, I want to dig deep in the problem, that what is the actual problem? Why India is on the 70th number in the ease of doing business? Why there are such bad rules for taxation and GST? Why? Like the root cause. There is a root cause of all this issue. To put it in words, I would say that is the mindset of all of us. Who is the government? We are the government, right? People from us form the government. So government is not an alien structure or something. We are the government. What government is thinking is our thought basically. So in order to curb this, remove all these issues and everything, what basically needs to be changed is our mindset.
We were talking about funding. I think Karan raised the point of funding. And I want to talk about funding specifically with regards startups and tech startups. And let me come to you on this, Professor Sinha. And I want to talk about angel tax. The budget, for many years now, everyone has been looking at it very closely in terms of any commentary, in terms of the angel tax, whether any announcements will happen. I want to ask you on that, and Karan, maybe you can also respond on that.
So I think angel tax is something which I would expect that it needs to be completely moved out. No clarification, nothing, etc., is going to help it out. Sure that there is some intention behind bringing up clauses like angel tax because you want to curb money laundering, but I think you have to figure out other ways of doing it, because when you are in the early phases of promoting startups and innovation, you require quantum of capital, then quality of capital. So once you have achieved some quantum, then you can now, that enough capital is coming, let's figure out what quality of capital is coming. So that's the rationale based on which I think things like angel tax needs to be moved out.
The flaw that I see in Section 56 or angel tax is the fact that it actually targets the actual and not the potential. Now, a startup is actually an idea, right? I mean, an idea that can change the world or not. But it's not up to us to decide, right? The market, it's a free market. The market will decide what the valuation of an idea would be. So I think it's impossible to value an idea in the short term based on what the balance sheet holds or what the cash flow statement is saying. So ultimately, I think this Section 56 is stifling capital in a cash-starved economy. So at this point in time, we should be actually focusing on how much capital we can attract to the ecosystem of startups. Because here is where all your innovation, R&D, and research will take place.
Sure, Amar?
Yeah, just to add to what Karan said, in today's world, how the angel tax basically works is that a company is valued by an X person based on his perception of the idea and the team. At angel stage, it is very important to evaluate the team and to see what kind of an idea it is and how big can it grow. Now that varies very different between two people. And so today what the rule says is that I may value a company at 100 rupees, and then that valuation has to be vetted by a government official who needs to give a fair market value. Now here we are talking about companies. Most companies at this stage haven't even started operations. So then the government official turns around and says, for example, in this example, he says, no, the company is valued at 50 rupees. So then I'm, as the company, liable to pay tax on the rest 50 rupees, 30% tax on the rest 50 rupees. So the investment that I was getting for 100 rupees, I would have to pay 15 rupees back as tax before I even started operations. And that's based on the perception of the third party vetting the thing. At that stage, my concern is I need that money I have a revenue projection, why I need that money. I have expense projections, why I need that money. In this case, I have to let go of that 15 rupees right up front before I even start. So this angel investment definitely needs to, angel tax definitely needs to be deferred and probably taxed in a different way later.
All right, it's time for a quick break here on a panel discussion. Joining you from the city of Nawabs, do stay tuned. Much more from an expert panel discussion on the other side. Welcome back and thanks for joining us on this special panel discussion. Joining you from the city of Nawabs, talking about promoting the best business practices. Do stay tuned, bringing you those expert highlights from a panel discussion. What is the role of the government in an entrepreneur's life? Allowing innovation to happen and having a hands-off approach, or making the rules, making the regulation and ensuring that businesses are following that? And maybe I can come first to the right side of the panel and ask them, according to you, what should the government be doing in the life of an entrepreneur?
They should, for an entrepreneur, they should first take us out from the global competition, because as an SME, we get missed out in the global competition. So first of all, we should be focused, and like the government has come up with ODOP, one district, one product. So it should be basically like labor intensive thing, like industries should be highlighted, because like for example, take Jute for Life. We are working with Jute, we are giving employment to around 500 plus women, rural women of Uttar Pradesh, but we don't have any existence just because Jute is not our product, it is a West Bengal product. So that should be taken care of by the government.
Just to add up to that, government has to act like an enabler of growth. They are there to support the startups, the ecosystem, the entrepreneurs, to give them a platform where they can avail the global practices, they can understand the use of technology, and can move forward with time. They have to give a platform where buyers and global bigger organizations can come to these small-time businesses and help them through the whole journey.
Okay.
The government is being a little tight with the rules right now, because especially for like people like us, and very honestly, like I'm not I'm not interested like in accounts or a certain department, but there's so many rules and regulations that have to be followed, that being a woman and dealing with so many different things, it's not possible for us to look after everything. So, just on a very practical level, if I don't have someone behind me, I cannot run my business.
Okay, so you're, I would assume, continuing, the thought that Amar also left us with in terms of saying maybe not having taxation maybe for a couple of years.
Yes, and besides taxation, like relaxing things so that people feel encouraged to work.
I think one, so you asked for whether they should be having hands-off approach and whether more rules should be there. I think one, in general, when you talk about innovation doesn't happen without hands-off approach. Even for large corporations, if you want to have innovation, you require a lot of freedom. Okay? Without that, innovation doesn't happen. Second, innovation requires slack. So when Anju was talking about, she said that I'm so preoccupied with my current set of operations that it doesn't leaves me enough time to get into the other growth or innovation side of the story. So there, what I understand is, yes, if you have to run governance, etc., you have to have some rules. But for certain size of companies, especially the smaller ones, I think rather than acting as just rule enforcers, you should also be a service provider. So let's say IT department has a specific cell to take care of. So anybody who wants to pay tax, they come there, get their issues sorted out, and pay that. So one service providing cell should help all these things out.
Sure.
I would go with what Sir said in the sense that government needs to have a more hands-off approach, and that's also what Modi ji had said, minimum governance, when he was campaigning for his campaign. Minimum governance will help startups at least come up with more innovative ways of doing innovative products. There has to be government oversight. Obviously, nobody's asking for government oversight to be totally removed. But yes, it has to be hands-off approach rather than a total hands-on approach.
Actually, adding to Mr. Gaurav and Mr. Ramar, there is a lot government can help us in. Suppose we have a whole startup ecosystem. Government can actually add more people who are aware of startups and technology, and they would greatly help startups to grow. And apart from that, let's come to angel tax thing. That is something that is, a bottleneck for startups. Instead, my view is that government should basically add up to that investment. Suppose someone is investing X amount, government should actually add an amount to that and give it to the startups.
90% of all questions that entrepreneurs in every city that we're going to ask us is, why haven't we been able to raise funds? The government has many schemes, the CGT MSE scheme, for instance, where they're saying 2 crores, collateral free, where they're saying under 59 minutes, 1 crore is, we'll ensure that you're getting that kind of funds. But not much seems to be coming down to the entrepreneurs, at least that's what we hear. So either if you could comment on what is needed to ensure implementation of this, or to say how can funding into the ecosystem be improved for small businesses at a time when NPAs are at a 10-year high, and therefore funding to even large businesses are being hit. To all of you gentlemen and to our lady entrepreneurs as well.
Regarding what you said about the 59 minutes loan, I am the live example. I was super excited when I read the news in the newspaper morning that now the entrepreneurs can get 2 crores of loan in 59 minutes and without any collateral security. The same day I opened the net and I was about to apply it, and I found I found some difficulty, and I contacted the bank manager, and I got to know that all the rules and regulations which were earlier, it is still the same. It was only the announcement which was made, and no changes. The same collaterals, same guarantees, everything was same. So there was nothing except the announcement. So that was a big setback.
So that is the approval happens in 59 minutes, less than an hour, but the dispersal, of course, will take time. Sure.
I believe that the government has been really hand-on over the startup reforms, and India lately has become the 3rd largest startup base as a global economy. And to add to the funding part, there are many schemes which are announced at the top. But then a more proactive role has to be played by the government functionaries and departments and banks who are at the lowest level. Role of these lowest functionaries who are actually at the front end facing these startups and entrepreneurs have to understand the requirement, the policies, and then to talk to these startups and provide them solutions.
Okay, so you're saying the policies are there.
Yes.
It's perhaps about the implementation and also how the entrepreneurs should be approaching it. Go ahead.
So one of the things that Bilal was talking about, mindset. So I think there is a need of reshaping the mindset of the middle managers of governance and the low-level implementers of governance. So probably that can bring about a little bit of speeding up the process of the intention behind the policies.
Yes, banks are lending. NPAs are high, so banks' ability to lend is restricted. The government is trying to get the banks to lend more. However, because of the restrictions that they have, because of the NPAs, because of how much they can lend, there is a restriction there. We have to look at new sources of funding, like Sabyasachi also said. We have to see how else can we encourage people.
Now the startup ecosystem is moving towards the tier 2 cities and cities like Lucknow, which are having everything, probably the infra, the cheaper setup cost and everything. So Lucknow as a city predominantly has everything today, international connectivity, infra, but the only thing which is lagging is the investor base. So if the government and the startup society and the ecosystem can invite the big players, the big investors like Sequoia or Tiger or anyone to set up offices in cities like Lucknow, I'm sure many more startups will start venturing out.
Until now in UP, we have only just one investor, venture catalyst, and there is no other investor. So big investors should be invited to UP. So,
But to actually raise funds, you will have to get in touch with the investors across the country in any case. It's not city specific really. So if you want to raise funds,
But Anjali did raise a pertinent point. A few entrepreneurs that we've spoken with in the past, based in places like, say, Raipur, Ranchi, etc., and based in Tier 3 and Tier 4, say that the minute they approach investors for funds, they take a look at where they're based. They don't look at, say, maybe the business model or the track record or the revenue model, and close up the access to funds. What would you have to say to maybe any entrepreneurs in this audience who may have faced it, or to our viewers who are not based in the metros, don't have access to, your Sequoia and a Tiger Capitals, for instance? What would you have to say to them about how to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, it is obviously more difficult if you're based in a tier 2 city to raise funds from the big funds that what Gaurav was talking about. Primarily because when you are based in the bigger city, the offices are very close to you, and you have an interaction on a daily basis. They're able to see your team, they're able to evaluate your team, and see your idea and evaluate it properly. In a tier 2 city, that is always a risk. So to start off with, of course, you can either raise money from people who are already here, who have different businesses and would look at investment as an option in tier 2 cities. You can start with that and get other big startups to have their setups based here.
Thank you to everyone who's been here on this panel. That's all we managed to pack in, but if you have any feedback for us, do remember we're traveling to 20 cities across the country, ensuring your thoughts and concerns are being brought to the forefront. Get in touch with us. leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com is our email ID. Write to me at Sunanda_J on Twitter, or LOT_ET Now, which is our official Twitter handle. Reach us on Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, which is our Facebook page. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. As per the new tri-tariff order, you now have the power to choose and pay only for the channels you love. To keep watching Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, call your cable or DTH operator and get the Times movies and news pack now.